let you. All right, mic check because this is a new setup I'm trying over here. So testing, testing, 1, 2, testing, testing. Magic fingers on the stream. All right, stream is up. Can you hear me, chat? Can you hear Candlejack?
Let me see. I think so. I think we're good.
Doobie doo. La da 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 da. Doobie doobie doo.
If nothing else, it's working on my end. So the re-upload will be fine.
All right. Well, that's important. All right. Welcome in to the very first rendition of 40K Mondays. So I'm excited because I finally found a way to handle my backlog of models and not be worried about not streaming. So I think it's gonna be a win-win. And Candlejack gets to burn through the things that bother him or that are eating at his brain in 40K. So
It's true. It's quite a lot and often.
I think this is gonna be a win-win for the both of us. I
I
think
I think it'll work out.
so.
Hold
As you
on.
can see, chat, I am working on my custom Triceratops Spacer model for my own custom chapter. I got this on Etsy. Uh, it's been a long process because I'm still struggling to figure out what color scheme I'm really going with, but uh, it, I think it'll turn out fine. It's not like you have regular painted 40K models to like look at people's designs of and like go off of. Like, oh, I'll just do a rendition of that, or I'll use that color like he did.
No,
So
there's not a lot of dinosaur space marines. Is what you're saying?
no, and I can't really find on Instagram like models of this. So like all I'm doing right now is like I'm just cleaning the dust off of him before I paint him because he's been sitting here for a minute.
Yeah, I finally got like a legitimate curio cabinet to keep not even half of my stuff covered.
Yeah, I believe. I know. I've been to your house.
It's bad. It's not. It's not
I
good.
mean, the idea, like everything for display there in like the dining room area looks beautiful, except everything gets absolutely covered in dust.
Yeah, it's you know, once my
So
daughter is old enough, she'll have a lot of interesting arts and crafts.
yeah, but I mean, this doesn't look bad so far, right?
No, looks good. It's
Okay.
it's just the question of you got to formalize the color scheme, which is
It's.
always going to be the problem.
I think I've got the base idea here. Basically, flat standard Mechanicus gray for most of the armor. Little touches of uh, gold and silver here and there. That weird green that like the rats, the Skaven use,
Yeah.
and very specific parts. And then other than that, like it's gonna be very basic like standard. It's not gonna like pop, but it's gonna look cool. So, uh, have you ever had to paint a model like this, like where there's no really like
Uh, it it happens more in fantasy, I think, where like my Stormcast models are
right?
like if you don't paint them gold, then there's like nothing else. Like yeah, you can paint them gold or some other metallic, but if it's not that, it's essentially nothing. Like that's how my Paladors ended up riding like parrots and shit.
Okay.
Is because everything is like the two tone griffin in like even like in the showcase models. It's like nobody really had done anything interesting with them, but mine ride these completely ostentatious parrots, but well, and the one's a bald eagle, but
Dad, I'm gonna do my absolute best. I mean, obviously, some weeks we'll be playing games together and not just be like sitting here talking while I'm painting bottles. But I used a little quick Sharpie to draw a little box to try to keep the model in, so it set it in the camera. So,
it's working.
I'm trying my best here. I've All right, there we go. All right, well, Candlejack,
Well,
To quote Cody Rhodes, what do you want to talk about?
I figured we'd start at my current annoyance and pain point. So, so I was watching. This is kind of where it got started. I was recently banned from a bunch of 40k
Thank you,
Reddits.
fella.
Lore Reddits is the the crux of where this is coming from. We don't need to get into that.
No.
Um,
There's a lot of Warhammer 40k Reddits out there, chat. Okay, there's a lot.
I'm not welcome.
And they are very tribalistic.
Well,
Like, you'll have some that will say, like, we can talk about anything, and you will easily be kicked from those more than some others.
well, the fact that I've been playing a lot longer than most people, especially in the United States.
Oh yeah, because we're older.
Yeah, well, like,
You've been playing for 2 decades longer than I have.
yeah, I mean, like, it sounds crazy because we're in 10th edition, and like,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, Rogue Trader, first edition. That was a long time ago, and then like, I have to constantly remind myself that I started playing in third edition, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not far away from that, am I? So like, my perspective is so much stranger than a lot of modern fans, but just because I'm more like I know what used to be there. So when we're talking, just because this is the first episode, oh yeah, is that typhus or
No, that's the finished. Let's see, you got me. One of
oh
them.
oh nice
And yeah, he's the one with dual chain fists, and he came out
yeah
absolutely amazing. I know I need better lighting for this desk. I get it, chat. Before anybody says anything, but this light was free from an old job, so
that's what's gonna be.
it's gonna be this for now.
I think it's
Like
I think it's that and the camera, but
anyway,
regardless,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
the way when we're talking about things, I just want to standardize it now.
Yes.
So
Good.
when we're talking about things, we're going to be talking about it in 4 settings, which is the modern lore, which is honestly the longest version of things. The old lore, Rogue Trader, and real life. Because a lot of things that have to do with 40k's lore are just business decisions that kind of calcified into the lore. They like kind of made it work. But so I was watching this video, and it's these guys that I watch pretty regularly. They're pretty informative, and they're usually pretty sharp. But they were talking about Judge Dredd and 40k, and they were like, yeah, a lot of Americans don't really get satire, and that these two things are satire. And I'm like, okay, well, with Judge Dredd, like, it's a difference in policing. Like, our police can go from being normal to Judge Dredd if, like, 2 or 3 things happen.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, a lot of things need to happen for the Europeans to start shooting people. So, I'm like, yeah, we don't really get Judge Dredd because it's hitting too close to home. I'm like, that's why there's a disconnect there. So I'm like, I think you're wrong there. And then with 40k, I'm like, well, 40k didn't really catch on for a really long time here, and like their whole thing, it's like, the Imperium is bad, everyone's bad, it's there is only war, like that's the whole thing. And I'm like, yes, but if you're a fairly recent fan, like, how are you supposed to know that? Like of course a lot of modern 40k fans like aren't getting that the Imperium is bad. It's like because it's not presented to them that way. Like if your only exposure to 40k is like the recent stuff, like Dark Tide and Space Marine, like, would you guess that the people that you're playing as are also the bad guys? Like, no, of course you wouldn't.
Especially in Dark Tide.
Well, like,
you look at what you're fighting and what you're killing, you're like, yeah, clearly I'm the good guy here.
well, and even in Dark Tide, where it's like, oh, you're rejects, you're disposable. It's like, yeah, but like, look how many hoops they jumped through to like make that work. Like, you're in jail when you first meet your character. You've committed some kind of crime that's in the character creator. So, like, you are guilty. And, like, even that, it feels very soft of, like, getting you into it. So I was like, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, if you're, even, like, from the books and stuff like that, like, yeah, the Grimmer, like, the Imperium is bad stuff still exists, but if you're not aware of it, you might not know. Like, that's a totally valid thing to be, like, surprised that the Imperium are the bad guys. And, like, that was, I was just thinking about it, of, like, how much shit has changed. And then, the crux of me getting into it with everyone was female Space Marines, which is always, well, like, because they're like, it's because I have a broader lens than most people. It's like, so whenever the topic is brought up, it's like there aren't any female Space Marines, and I'm like, yeah, except when there were.
Yeah, but also, I mean, again, like you mentioned at the beginning of this, you have to drive the line between old lore and new lore, because in old lore, Lehman Russ wasn't even a Primarch. He was a Space Marine who got the title of Primarch.
Yeah, it's always
Half his face melted off. So,
well, it's one of those things where it's like people like legitimately just don't know, and it's like, yeah, it's like there were female Space Marines in Rogue Trader, like,
yes.
And it's like they didn't have like this epiphany of like, oh, it's gonna be even grimmer and darker if we do this. It's like, no, the reason there aren't female Space Marines is because they weren't selling at the distributors, and they asked them to not ship them as many. So when they went from being like a skirmish war game, because that's more what Rogue Trader was,
yeah,
to a large scale war game where they had to scale everything up, it was like, okay, well, we're selling more of the men, we're just going to mold men. Like, it was like, it's like it has nothing to do with anything other than a very simple business decision that they wrote into the lore and just kind of stuck with. And yeah, it's still there. Like, honestly, the fact that it makes less sense the further we go makes me respect them more for it, that they've just stuck to their guns on it. And it's like,
I mean, and here's the thing, like, a Space Marine in power armor with a helmet on, the fact whether it's a man or a woman underneath that, you shouldn't be able to tell.
well, that, and it's like, they're wearing power armor. It's like, you could have glass bones. The power armor is doing 99% of the work. It's like, it's just such a weird hill that, like, don't get me wrong, I do not want them to change it, which is, like, kind of the weird catch-22.
Be very... So, in current lore, where we are today, do you want female Space Marines?
No. Well, and it's... And that has more to do with, like, tradition and, like, keeping... Because, like, I feel like if they can suddenly make that work, it breaks a lot of the lore, because, like, they're already riding a real fine line with like the Primaris existing and like everything kind of just being nicer than it used to be, that like I feel like if you break one of those key tenets of the lore, it hurts the overall package in a lot of different ways. And it's like it's just not super necessary. That, and I think 40K fans get a super bad reputation that they don't always deserve. Like, especially when it comes to inclusion. Like, the hill that most 40K fans are dying on specifically is they don't want female Space Marines because of lore. It's like, these are the same people who bugged Games Workshop for years, being like, "Hey, why aren't there female Imperial Guard models?" Like,
Yep.
and it's like, and more importantly, in like the Eldar and a lot of other armies, like there just are female sculpts in there and have been there for forever, and nobody's ever like flipped shit about it. It's like it's this one sticking point, and there is reason to believe that we might get female Space Marines sooner than later. But it's going to be on the Chaos side.
That makes sense.
Well, because the Chaos side has long had female warriors that have been elevated somehow to like the combat level of a Space Marine.
Okay.
And it's been a running narrative in the lore for a while now that Abaddon is trying to figure out Chaos Primaris. And if he has a different method to bring the Chaos side to the Primaris level, it makes sense that he might not have the same restrictions. Like, if there's a certain level of, like, magic or demon possession happening, it's like...
okay.
It's like, okay, well, like... And I mean, like, the whole thing of not having female Space Marines, like, if you think about it for longer than a few seconds, like, it doesn't really make sense, if any, you know... Not that putting logical thought to a sci-fi setting makes sense to begin with, but, like...
Exactly.
But, like, it doesn't really make sense if you think about it. It's like you're transforming these kids into
Children.
into like
prepubescent chat.
Yeah.
I think that's important about prepubescent humans.
And you're turning them into monsters, and like,
And then as far as custodies, it's infants.
Yeah, like they start working on you from the very, very beginning, and it's like.
Yeah.
It's just weird that it's like so the uterus is what was throwing you off in that scenario. It's like that's what's fucking you up here with your super science. Like it's a weird hang up. Like
Knockadors is like, what am I supposed to do with this cow's head?
Yeah.
It's impossible to work.
it's an innie. I don't know what to do. Like the more you think about it, the less sense it makes. It's like oh, but men are stronger. And it's like, yeah, but like when you like, okay, let's say like most trained men in the military, like, yeah, they're probably like 20 to 40% stronger than their female counterparts. When you scale that up enough, it really stops to matter. It's like, oh, well, a male Space Marine could pick up an F-150 XL, and she can only pick up an F-150. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about right now? And it's like, and if they're in power armor, it's literally the same.
Like, it'd be so, like, minuscule. It's just like, oh, well, this Space Marine can stop a Bane Blade. It's like, well, this female Space Marine can only stop a repulsor with her bare hands. It's like...
It's like what?
Really?
What are we? What are we? It's such splitting hairs.
You're comparing a 45-yard field goal to like a 52-yard field goal. It's just like, yeah, one's better, but like, I'll still take the 49-yarder consistently. Like, I wouldn't not draft that person.
Yeah, it's like and especially like with how desperate the Imperium is painted. It's like this is such a splitting hairs moment, especially when it's like they will gladly take completely unmodified women and throw them into the grinder. No problem. It's like
Yeah, just so you understand, chat, the Imperial Guard they have all women regiments in the Imperial Guard. And then you have the Sisters of Battle and the Sisters of Silence, who are all women who get murdered in this terrible universe.
Yeah,
this is not a happy universe to be in.
It's why it's so weird. Like it's like everybody's just meat for the grinder, but it's this one strange sticking point from a portion of the lore that doesn't exist anymore.
But did.
Yeah, and
it did exist.
And it's like, and that's why. And it's like, and even that wasn't a lore decision. It was a simple business decision. And like, that's the weirdest battleground of like 40K culture.
And I don't like, as far as like women's Space Marines, they don't even have to sell full models. They can just sell headpieces. Like, because really the armor shouldn't change. Like, a fucking female Space Marine in Phobos armor, Terminator armor, or whatever shouldn't look any different than...
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, yeah, the Sisters of Battle, like, look that way specifically. Like, it was marketed that way.
Yeah, it's because they're battle nuns. Like...
Now, do I want female Space Marines in the current lore? I don't think so.
No. Like
in
that.
my opinion, I'm not a fan of it. I think you're messing with the lore too much.
Yeah.
I also think that I think women are dying harsh enough in the 40K universe that you don't need to make them Space Marines. Like the Space Marines are these cool heroes. It's like, yeah, and a lot of them die gruesomely and horrifically. So the same way as in the Guardsmen. So do you have to have women's space? It's like, for the argument of, well, we want to be inclusive. It's like, well, you are included in the 40K universe, just not in this one niche thing. Like, in the grant, it's like, yeah, the Space Marines supposed to board 40K. Sure, everybody knows that. But are they the largest faction? Or no. Like, the Space Marines aren't keeping the Imperial Man safe. The Imperial Guard is, which has women in it. So,
well, it's...
the fact you want to be, like, we want to be in this brotherhood religious cult of nonsense murderer anti-humans that are juiced to the gills with steroids and space magic. Like, why? Why would you want to be that? Like, they're barely human. They don't act like humans. Like, I mean, in the Horus Heresy, you got to see a lot of human features in the Space Marines at the time. But, like, in 40K, no. These guys are fucking ridiculous, idiot nightmare people. Like,
well, and that's the other thing, is that, like...
It's just like, I want women to be part of that. Why? Do you hate women?
Well, it's the other thing of, like I was saying, where the presentation isn't quite met, especially for newer people. It's like, you look at, like, Titus, who, like, he looks like, you know, a Gears of War character. Like, he looks pretty normal. Where it's like, in every book where you're reading about Space Marines, is that, like, their features are terrifying. Like, they don't look right. They don't look like people. And they make normal people fucking uncomfortable. Like, it's like...
Even for, like, obviously the Ultramarines take more after Gilliman and, like, with their jawline and facial features, but, like, that was another thing with Space Marine 2, where, like, there's no black fucking Ultramarines. Like, yes, there are. There's 1,000 fucking planets under Ultramar.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but if you notice, all three of those Ultramarines had the same fucking jaw and brow structure that they got from Daddy Gilliman. It's just like, that's what it means. Like, no, not every Blood Angel looks like Sanguinius, but they all have very fair skin and blonde hair that they got from their gene father. And even Blood Angels, who are like very appealing to look at, they're generally very handsome according to the lore, but like even still, humans have a hard time staring at them or looking at them for any short a period of time.
Yeah, it's like they're weird looking. They're like they got those big Easter Island heads. People don't like hanging out with them. But
Even Caiaphas Cain, who has been up close and personal with orcs, Eldar demons, and or demons of Slanesh, Eldar, and everything, was uncomfortable being in a room with a Space Marine by himself.
yeah, it's like they're just weird to be around. But yeah, and it's like, okay, like if it's like if you want some kind of like parody, like the Space Marines are also the Space Marines. It's like they're also all male due to a complete business decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you wanted something different, then like your audience is your audience at a certain point. And it's like, look, this is there. Even if you did make female Space Marines, let's say that you did, I would still guess that most of your audience does what we do, which is everybody's got a goddamn helmet on.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't are probably guys anyway. Like, that's just your audience. It just is who it is. Like, the people that want female Space Marines already play Sisters of Battle. Like, I don't... Like, maybe you could... If you could go back in time, it's like, you could change it, but, like, I don't know how you unring that bell at this point.
Only way, and we talked about this in the past, the only way I think you could unring that bell is, like, when the Primaris came out. That's the only time you could have let female Space Marines in canon again. Obviously, it was pre-canon before. Come out. Where, like, the tech, what's it, Bysarius called? How the fuck do you say his name?
Belisarius Claw.
Belisarius Call made the Primaris Marine, and just being like, oh yeah, you could make female Space Marines, and it could be as simple as, it's just like, oh, well, how could the Emperor not get around the whole unit? Oh, I just removed it, and you're fine. Just remove that, put the other organs there, you're good to go.
Well, like,
and also, they didn't.
And like,
they did not pull that trigger, and they easily could have then, and chose not to.
Well, with the Primaris, it's like they changed way more than... They added a whole lot of shit that was way more difficult.
And I'm like, they added women custodies. I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me, because I really don't care about custodies anyway, and I'm fine with big gold armor muscle mommies. So I'm not gonna complain.
Like, it's...
But
the
custodies aren't Space Marines. Let's not get that confused.
And the custodies
are not a fucking Space Marine.
And they're already, like, retroactively a thing. Like, it's like, the custodes have been around for a bit in the lore, but it's like, were they there when the Thunder Warriors were first mentioned? No. No, they were not. So it's like, it's such a weird thing. But yeah, I think female Chaos Marines, I think that's entirely on the table.
Yeah, that could be interesting. That could be an interesting take. I like it. It's different.
Well,
it explains what, like, because, you know, Abaddon has a hard time getting new Marines. So
that,
like,
and
how do you fix that? Like, Abaddon, the Chaos having to go to the Materium to get aspirants is difficult.
Well,
so
that and Bile, who is probably the best geneticist, even outshining Claw, he's always had females in his experiments. So, like,
Well,
it,
he's had everything in his experience.
well, I'm just saying that if anyone's going to make them, it's him, and it's like he doesn't see that as a restriction. In fact, I believe in one of the books he insults Claw for not being able to figure it out because I did.
I'm gonna go on a quick little rant here. So, Chad, I am painting this
Yeah.
custom model from Etsy. Obviously, not GW license or whatever. My custom Arby. So I wanted to do the Triceratops, typical like reptilian green. So I basically just went with Death Guard green, which I think. I mean, I got some pictures on my Instagram, Chad. If you want to see that, it came out pretty good. The issue is, I like Citadel paint, and I only say that because it's only like I've used Army Painter a little bit, and some Army Painter's better, but it brushes differently on the model for some fucking reason. This is Death Guard green. This is a base, so this is supposed to be thick. This is supposed to, cover the black. Like, this isn't your layer. This is your base. If I paint something base with the Fang, which I should have. Jesus Christ, who the fuck was that? That was creepy. This is the Fang. This is your base color for Space Wolves. So you paint it black or white, whatever you want, and then it's first layer, this base. This shit will cover everything. So why the fuck does this say base and I have to do coat after coat after fucking coat just to do one little foot so you don't see black is fucking ridiculous. It's not a base, it's a layer. Say it's a fucking layer. Jesus Christ. Fucking pain in my ass. This model's taken 10 times longer because I chose this fucking color.
I'll just wait till you decide to paint something yellow.
Because somebody
realized that mistake.
For the bits, okay. What color did you say?
Yellow.
Oh.
Yellow doesn't cover shit. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah. Anytime I have to do a Space Wolves like one shoulder piece in fucking yellow, I'm losing my mind. I'm like, all right, well, I painted this whole model in 2 hours. I'm gonna spend the next 2 on this one fucking shoulder pad.
Yeah, people that paint Imperial Fist armies are fucking masochists. There's something fucking wrong with them.
Like, oh my god. So, I'm sorry. Continue. We were talking about female Space Marines and how it's a bad idea.
But oh yeah, it's like.
Thank you for the bits, Ogie. Appreciate you, bud.
Yeah, we were talking about like we've got the new Emperor's Children Codex coming out. It's like, well, every time those codexes come out, there's a couple new models that drop too. It's like, is it possible? It's like, yeah, maybe, we'll see. It's weird though, because there's the two main characters are always like the Primarch and then the champion.
Captain. Yeah. And he's.
But the problem is that neither of those people are the most famous Emperor's Children at this point.
Well, it's Fabius and it's Lucius, isn't it?
Yeah, but Lucius hasn't been relevant anywhere.
Well, he needs a new fucking model.
And Lucius just kind of is nothing. Like,
no, he kind of sucks.
Well, he's not interesting. Like,
all he does is lose and take over somebody's body. Like,
well, even that, like, he's just not an interesting character. Like, he's so one note. Like, he's a duelist, and it's like, okay, what else? It's like,
that's it.
It's like Jesus, okay. But then you've got even like their Primarch Fulgrim. It's like he's around, and he's arguably been the most active of the traitor Primarchs, but like it's still Fabius Bile, who is kind of the key person in the Emperor's Children. And
right, because he's the one who makes all the trades and deals with the other traitor Primarchs and captains in Abaddon to get them shit, isn't he?
Yeah, like he is one of, if arguably the most important trader marine. Like he arguably might be more important than even Abaddon at this point. Like there probably not true, but there's an argument that could be made. But like that no other codex has needed to deal with that fact. It's been the Primarch, the Lieutenant, and that's it. But you've got Bile now, and Bile doesn't play nice with the rest of them. No. Like Fulgrim does not like Bile. Lucius does not like him, and Bile doesn't like them. He thinks that they're failures and morons.
Well, he thinks everybody's beneath him.
And he's partially correct. But he's also like he's a very strange one. Like his goals are weird, and it's arguable if he even wants what he says he wants. He's a strange character, but it's like, okay, like you're going to make a codex where is he going to be included in the Emperor's Children? Like he's very much his own thing most of the time. So I'm wondering if he even will be in the codex. Like
I hope so. I hope we get he's in the codex and we get a new Fabius model and a Lucius model.
Well, what I mean is that will Bile be, because like Karn and Typhus and Armon and Lucius are probably going to be taken out of the base Chaos Codex
and be in their own, in their Legion's Codex. You're saying?
Yeah. So my question is, does Bile make the jump, or does Bile's creation of Bile army stay in the core rulebook?
Couldn't he just be in both? Couldn't he be a champion in the Chaos Codex and for the Emperor's Children?
I mean, he could be, but it's like, at this point, how much sense does it make for him to have the exact same Legion rules as Lucius? And it's like, I don't think it makes that much sense. I think a more generalist with his creation of Bile rules makes way more sense than specifically the Emperor's Children with yeah, like that's, I don't know what they'll do though, because it's Games Workshop never seems to go far enough, but when it comes to the Emperor's Children, they've been ignored for so long at this point that there's no expectation right now.
Right.
Like,
so you almost can't fuck up.
Yeah.
Something's better than nothing, and they've been nothing for years.
They can find a way.
Tidbit. So these are Citadel paint pods. I really like them. It's all I've ever basically used. If you're like me and you don't paint a model for months at a time, and you think these are going to go bad or whatever, the only ones that really seem to go bad are any yellow or white. Period. Other than that, you get some of these, you add either a tiny drop of alcohol or a little bit of water is normally what I add, and you just shake them up, and they're like brand new. Yeah. So that's what I do. If a real painter wants to come out here and say differently, listen to them, fine. But I just add a little bit of water, just a little bit, couple drops of water to this, shake it up really good, and it'll be like brand new.
Yeah, the Army Painter quick paints? I like those better than most of the Citadel fast paints for coverage.
You mean like these? The like what I'm holding right here? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, the speed paint stuff. Yeah.
It just says Army Painter War Paints. It doesn't say Speed Painter.
No. So it's like the contrast paints is what the Citadel version is.
I've never tried any of those.
The Army Painter speed paints definitely cover a lot better than the contrast paints. Especially the first run of the contrast paints. The first run of the contrast paints are real hit and miss. But the other ones that I like are Vallejo. Are those are pretty much the only two that I use. I'm not a huge fan of Army Painter personally.
Another thing, like with this mod, like with every model I do, chat, I paint the whole. Assemble the whole fucking thing. I've seen Instagram videos of people having like each individual like arm on like a toothpick that's in like a wine cork bottle, like a cork, and paint it and then somehow assemble it. I don't do that shit. I just fucking assemble the whole thing and paint it. The only issue I really come into, because like with this model, I'm holding it a lot of the time by his rear thighs here, so I've had to repaint the gray here multiple times because it just gets rubbed off. But basically, if you're painting, just have like a really light grip on it. Like you're really not holding this thing down. You're really just kind of like resting it, and that'll prevent a lot of that from happening. But because of that, yeah, you're gonna have to go over. Like there's a spot here I can see I've rubbed off. I had to go back over, but it only takes a few seconds. It's not like end of the world or anything.
I've always fully assembled models mostly so that I don't waste my time on something no one will ever see.
Exactly. So, and that's what I went to. We have an actual licensed Warhammer store, not a hobby store that's licensed to sell, but an actual Warhammer store here in Winter Garden now. And I went there and I was talking to him when I painted that model for Apex.
Yeah.
And we were going over stuff. I'm like, yeah, like I fully assemble everything because he was showing me some contrast and some paints on some test sprues.
Mm.
And I'm like, do you paint things on the sprue and then cut it out? He goes, no, never do that. He goes, don't ever do that. He goes, fully assemble it and paint it. He goes, you watch somebody like are just painting an arm. He's like, they're out of their goddamn mind. I'm like, all right, fair enough.
Like you,
this is the guy who paints the models for display for the Warhammer store.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna trust his word.
Even you need to be so good to be doing that. Like the best painter that I know up here, which I routinely just call him a witch whenever I see anything that he's done, because it's so his stuff is so good, it's fucking unbelievable. But it's like he fully assembles it, and it's like okay, well if you're fully assembling it, like you need to be fucking unreasonably good for this to like be worth it to not do it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if you're trying to win an award, yeah, don't assemble it. But for the rest of us, well, especially because I might want to play with them. Like, yeah. That's always been my problem. Is it's like I'm always in the middle of assembling and painting the army I'm using. Like, most of the time that I'm not painting, it's because I'm not playing.
Now, would I find it cool to like do like a diorama? Because I've seen a lot of those lately, especially on Instagram, and they look really cool and that looks really interesting. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but if you can never use that to play ever, like, because it's a fucking diorama, like, so it's just that forever, like,
it's. Yeah, I think they're cool, but it's like, why is this? It's like, you need to be, you're not, if you're making dioramas, you're not playing the game. Like, no. You can't be, right?
There's no way. Like, what are you gonna have? Like, you got, like four Space Marines with heavy flamers, and one is just in the middle of incinerating a fucking Termagant with like foam and lights in it, and it's just like, yeah, but you can't shoot that part. You can only shoot his base. Like, how you gonna move that around the fucking board?
It's like at that point you've fully committed to the hobby aspect of it. It's yes. When's the last time you bought a codex? Fucking.
I think they look cool.
It's
Like,
like
I don't hate them. I'm like, that's impressive, great. But that model will now never be anything else ever again.
well, it's like
I'm
being
impressed with it. I don't hate them. I don't hate them,
uh,
Chad. I want, like, the diorama stuff looks super cool. It's very neat. It's very niche. It takes a lot of work. And I appreciate the work those people put in. I fucking will. I might do that one time in my life on something, and that's it.
all like even like the guy I'm talking about who's like a great painter. He's always made me laugh because whenever I played him, I'm like, shit, your stuff's painted so well. And like that's what everybody kind of says to him, and it's partially because he's nice, but it's also that he's right when he says he's like, okay, well, we're playing right now. He's like, do my models look that much better than your models when we're standing here playing? And it's like, and he's like, no, they don't.
But you go get some good lighting and a light box and
Yeah.
the right camera. And...
He's like, but if you ask somebody over there at that table whose models are painted better, they might have a pretty tough time. And I'm like, that's a good point.
I think your stuff's painted really good. When it comes to painting models, Chad, I always just say less is more and keep it simple. Because I have a Leviathan Dreadnought I painted that stays in a box because now I hate looking at it. Because I think I tried to do way too much with it. But like, for example, this guy here, this is our Carcharodon Space Marine. This is just standard Mechanicus gray, one pauldron red, did the Polynesian symbols in white, everything else shaded in black, light gray on the gauntlets just to let it stand out a little bit more, and then the chainsaw, the chain fists are literally just gold, black, and gray. Like, keep it simple. I think it came out fucking great. This was the first model I did, was it edging on, that Diaz told me to try, and obviously there's better pictures of my Instagram than under this light, but and
Yeah.
I mean, even still, I have my Bjorn model, which was one of the first one I did, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And I think it's, to this day, I think it's great. Yeah, there's things I would have done differently now after looking at it and painting for a while, but it's just keep it simple, keep it clean. Remember, like, these are like,
My method has always been don't overdo essentially.
yeah, which is
It-
easy to do.
it's-
It's easy to overdo it.
Well, it's like, but that also comes with how I paint. Like, I paint by the army. Like, the lowest amount of units I'm ever going to paint is a full squad. Like, I never sit down and paint one thing. It's just,
Well, and that's hard. That's the difference between me and you, because you got me that Carcharodon squad of Terminators, and only one is completely painted, and I've gone and painted like one unit on other units, and then it's just like, because I remember when I went through that whole box of Space Wolves, and I'm just like sitting there doing Rust Gray the Fang over and again. I'm like, God, I'm so fucking sick of this. Like, let me
like,
let me paint something else. Let me do something else. Let me be able to paint a different weapon.
it's that's just I get into like a fugue state where I paint one thing and then it's just like army wide, and it's just like, yeah, my armies, they're all slowly getting worked on. Like my Black Templars army, when I first showed up, they were all black, then they were black and white, then they were black, then they were black, white, and gunmetal, and then they had more details and more details, and like that.
Over time.
It's like that's always been my method. But like, is any model in that army done? No. It's like, but arguably, I've never had a finished model.
Wow. That's well, and it's cool. Like the things people will figure out, like to add and do things. Like when your wife added a potpourri to her Warhammer Fantasy army,
Yeah, to
like
the
bases, like for the what's that army called?
Sylvaneth. I mean, she added like
It's
actual,
genius.
yeah, like she resined in like flowers and dehydrated like plant stuff. And the
Yeah,
army,
and it looked amazing.
yeah, and the army is plant stuff, so like it totally worked. But yeah, the hobby aspect is always interesting, and it it runs right in the face of the tournament aspect of things, which I I've always despised the tournament scene of 40K, which
I've never been to one, and I really have no desire to go to one.
it's awful. Like even the people that have had, it's because 40K's rules are nebulous. Like if you play a different game like War Machine, for example, War Machine's rules are very clear. Like there are no edge cases, like there are referees, but like you don't need one. Like
Okay.
you need a
Like
referee.
Mech Warrior, because Mech Warrior is a tabletop, right?
Yeah, and Mech Warrior's the same. Like you need a referee because there are a lot of rules, but it's not unclear how those rules interact with each other. Whereas with like 40K, it can be a little strange, and like there are a lot of edge cases that like sometimes don't make sense, and it's just not. I've said for years that Warhammer 40K is the worst game that Games Workshop makes. Like
Is there a Lord of the Rings game? Not like are the rules a lot easier? I'm assuming.
the Lord of the Rings game is just older. Like it doesn't have a lot of new stuff, and 40K has the problem of being like for like Warhammer 40K. Why is Warhammer 40K so much worse than Horus Heresy? Like why? It doesn't really make sense when you think about it, because it's like, well, Horus Heresy is just updated 7th edition, and it's like correct. It's like, oh, so 7th edition was good, and it's like, no, it was arguably one of the worst editions ever. And it's like, wait, what? How does that make sense? And it's like, because there's only Space Marines, and the game only has to consider Space Marines. It's like the problem with with
40K.
with 7th edition was that they had to account for the Tau, and what was arguably the most oppressive and overpowered version of any army that's ever existed in the Iron Warriors. Like the same thing happens with the Iron Warriors every couple of years, and I see it and I know it's going to happen. And then it happens, and everyone's like, wow, the Iron Warriors are really strong. It's like, oh, no shit. It's that the Iron Warriors focus on parts of the Chaos roster that no one really uses. And because no one uses them, it's seen as them being weak. So Games Workshop buffs them. And these are small buffs, but they happen over and over and over, and then they give the Iron Warriors something nice, some real special rules, and then you find out the hard way that Obliterators are the best unit in the Chaos lineup, and they get uber buffs from playing Iron Warriors. Like, everyone complains about the Tau in 7th edition. It's like, the Tau were a problem, but they weren't the Iron Warriors brought 3 basilisks problem. Like, who was like, hey, you know that excessively powerful artillery cannon that the Imperial Guard have? It's like, yeah, I think we should give it to one of the most durable armies in the game. It's like, yeah, that seems like it'll be fine. Like, what an insane choice to make.
Well, I heard somewhere, you know those plague cannons that the Death Guard have? Like
Yeah.
those weird, like, tank things that, like, those mortar units?
Yeah, the ones that were super underpowered and then they buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they made them, ridiculous. Yeah, those almost got put in the... So the Iron War, if you had Iron Wars in your army, you could bring them.
Exactly, because that would have
Like,
ended exactly how you expected to.
It was like a day or two away from when I read the Reddit thing I read online, when they're like, "We can't do this. This is a terrible idea."
Like, the Tau take all the heat for
The Taos suck.
well
Like,
the Tau
I'm gonna be a gunline army. It's like, so you're the Imperial Guard. No, we're better than them. Okay, well that seems stupid and unfair. It's just like,
well
okay, too bad. Deal with it.
it's the problem with 40K in like making the game somehow work is that you have the Tyranids on one end and the Tau on the other,
And everything else in between.
and you need to balance that. And it's like, okay, well, you can't because either melee or shooting,
Wins.
yeah,
One of the two.
one of the two is going to be wildly powerful. And then it's like, you can't... The reason the reason the Horus Heresy works is because everyone is combined, is that you're going to need to do some shooting and you're going to need to do some melee. But if you completely take that out of the equation, one of those things is just going to be really oppressively good. And that's always been the Tau's problem. Like, I've played a lot of games against the Tau.
Have you won one?
I win most of them. Hell,
I've played 3 games against the Tau and got my fucking ass handed to me against the Space Wolves.
well, that's because you bring vehicles.
I didn't have vehicles on that.
You didn't bring dreadnoughts?
Okay, well, okay. You don't gotta say it with that fucking tongue. Alright, you don't gotta be a fucking dick about it. Okay, yeah, I brought 3 dreadnoughts, okay? Because I don't count them as are they labeled as vehicles?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm wrong. Fine, I brought vehicles. You fucking happy about it?
I think they're called
Yeah,
walkers
you
now.
fucking like, well, you bring fucking vehicles because I know you're an idiot. Like,
No, well, like, that's the thing, is that...
it's technically a prosthetic. If we're splitting hairs here, Dreadnought's just a prosthetic.
They have vehicle rules. Well, like, but that's the thing, is that once...
Did you bring vehicle? No? Did you bring I'm like, shit.
I'm like, I know you brought dreadnoughts. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't bring vehicles?
This man has kept me from buying so many Dreadnoughts, chat. You have no idea.
I'm like, I didn't bring vehicle. There's no shot that a list that you had didn't have at least one dread in it. I don't believe you. That's why I was so incredulous. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
You didn't bring fucking vehicles.
You didn't bring Bjorn? No shot. I've seen you bring Bjorn in a 500-point list. Don't fucking lie to me.
I bought and assembled 4 fucking Dreadnoughts before I bought another unit of any other sort, and fucking Candlejack's like, you need to stop, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that after you've played them enough, because like you've only played the Tau like what, a handful of times.
I've played them 3 times.
Yeah.
In total.
Once you've played them enough, you're like, oh, you're playing, like, if you know you're going up against a Tau army, like, yeah, you're not supposed to tailor your army, but like at the same time, vehicles aren't that good to begin with. So like, if you're prepping for like a tournament, you have to expect you're going to play against the Tau. If you're going to play against the Tau, you don't bring vehicles, so you just don't have them in your list. So like, so like I've played against the Tau a lot. I usually win, even in 7th edition when they were extremely oppressive. Here's the problem. I was winning those games and losing 95% of my army. Like,
that's an Imperium game, though. 90% casualty rate victory.
Yeah, but his casualty rate was like 5 to 10%. It's like you're getting it's the worst of both worlds for both players. It's like the Tau player beats the absolute hell out of you and loses, and you just get shot off the board but win. Like, it sucks. Like, and that's always been the Tau's problem. Like, it's not a new issue.
So who wins against Tau and Imperial Guard?
Usually the Imperial Guard. It's just you bring nothing except normal infantry, and they just don't have enough bullets to shoot you off the board. And because they're so incompetent in melee combat, that your sergeant with a chainsword or power fist is going to murder anyone that dares get into close combat with you. Because they are terrible at it. But
except for that one guy who has a sword in his mech suit, right?
I mean, Farsight is not incompetent, and that's the most I'm willing to say. Like,
positive about him?
Yeah, like
I saw a lot of TikToks this year that are like, or I guess last year technically, that Farsight's ridiculous. If you're not bringing Farsight, you're an idiot. He's the best thing the Tau have.
Well, like he is, but battle suits aren't incompetent in melee combat, but like if you bring a unit that is of similar elite status into melee combat with a Tau battlesuit, that Tau battlesuit is going to get wrapped up almost every single time. Like,
so you're saying is Bjorn shouldn't lose to a Tau battlesuit?
Bjorn will never lose to Farsight. That will never happen. Like, you would have to roll
nothing but ones.
Like, it might be an impossibility. Like, I don't even know if that's statistically possible to happen.
And I don't even know what Bjorn's new rules are with the latest codex, because the last I played was like 9th edition.
Yeah, so 10th isn't wildly different.
I hope his True Claw is just as good as it was. murdering fucking clankers of Necrons.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't
fucking freeze rush Bjorn with a squad of like Necron soldiers, and I'm like, all right, we're in melee. He's like, that's fine. Mike, I don't think you realize it isn't.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it was also who I was playing. I had a bit of an advantage back in the day because I would just blitz in a death company, and
yeah.
I just needed one of those guys to get into melee, and you were going to have trouble.
I remember just teaching Harley how to play with her death company, and them getting into melee combat with me, and I'm like, oh, shit.
It's like that.
I'm like, you actually might win this, kid. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I made a mistake.
Yeah, they are an absolute buzzsaw for a certain, if you're not a vehicle, the death company is going to fuck you up regardless. And if you are a vehicle, they probably are going to fuck you up. But yeah, the Tau always had the same problem. It's that they either shoot you on the board, or they either completely shoot you off the board and just stop you from playing the game and win, or they mostly shoot you off the board and lose.
Yeah.
Like, they just really suck to play against. And then either the Tyranids, who are mostly melee,
Yeah.
they either absolutely shred everybody or they can't get the damage out and they just get annihilated. Like, I played a lot of editions where, the Tyranids have closed the gap, but then they just can't get it done against, a normal Space Marine equivalent.
Right.
It's like they just can't pump out the damage, they just can't get it done. It's like that's always been their problem. They're either a complete blender or they can't get it done. It's like it needs to be a combined arms war game. Because it's always the problem, is that they make something way too strong and not every army is given the same amount of love where
No, that's true.
where it's like yeah, like there was a time where the Imperial Guard tanks really dominated, but they only really dominated because it wasn't because vehicles got good. It's because vehicles were so bad that nobody bothered to bring a countermeasure. And Imperial Guard players were like, well,
tanks only cost us this much, so...
Yeah, so it was worth the risk that it's like, okay, like, even if they do have anti-tank, like, I can bring enough shit that, like, maybe I can make this work even if I get pieced out. And they were pretty much correct. But it's like, it's that kind of shit where, like, the tournament structure for 40K is also just bad. Like, becoming more familiar with how other war games work, like, made me pretty annoyed with 40K.
Oh, I got a new follow today. Sweet. I didn't even see it. Probably because I'm over here at my desk and my computer's all the way over there.
I might.
Thank you. I don't know. ALLASSE.
But like, the way that it works in other war games is you bring multiple lists. So, like, you bring, like, 3 lists, and you present them to your opponent before you play. And they throw one out. And then, like, you continue figuring out, like, what you're going to play. So, like, it's already, like, more interesting off the break. Because it's like, okay, so, like, you can actually bring armies that are if there is an army that's too strong for the meta, you can bring one that's dedicated to crushing it. And they have to present to you their list. So, like, if they have that high-powered list, you can just throw it in the dumpster. You can be like...
Yeah, see that? Not fucking using that.
Yeah, you can be like, no, fuck you. But those games also, like... It's more difficult to repeat shit, and, like, they have more clear rules for, like, what is and isn't allowed. But it's annoying that the biggest war game doesn't have a lot of these things. It's like 40K is the big dog in the scene. Like, they kind of dictate how everything works, and their tournament scene has always been dog shit. Like, always. It's always been terrible. There are hilarious things that have happened in the tournament scene. But...
Well, that's what did somebody just win with Custodes?
I mean, Custodes win a lot. Somebody just won the Las Vegas Open using using a unit that's been underutilized and got buffed to hell, a Vindicator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they used a Chaos list that had dual Vindicators in it. And what they would do, because now tanks can shoot in melee.
Oh, wow. That sounds dangerous.
Well, they've been able to do that since I think ninth.
I was about to say, because that was the only way I could shut down Freeze's Doomsday arc, was I would just deep strike Terminators in and
Well,
be like, yeah, my Terminators are tied up, but you're not fucking unloading on shit on me anymore, so fuck off.
yeah, you have to shoot at that unit, but like essentially what people are doing is they're turning the tank into a melee fighter and just running it into the lines and just shooting the cannon.
So, when did drop pods, what edition did drop pods become absolutely useless? Was it 7th or 8th?
Well, I mean, drop pods are always intermittently useless. Like, I don't think there's ever been a full edition where drop pods have been useless. Like,
Okay.
maybe ninth, but I wasn't paying enough attention to know for sure.
You don't need a drop pod. Like, if you're playing Space Wolves and you can just be on the hunt, which is essentially a second deep strike.
Well, yeah, like for Space Wolves, but the powerful army at the time was Iron Hands, I think. And the Iron Hands, I can definitely see them utilizing drop pods. So like when the Iron Hands were strong, I could definitely see it being useful to them. But it's like anything else. Like it's underpowered until it's like, oh, this is like the best shit ever, and drop pods are always in that category. They are either useless to the point of being like, what the fuck is this even for, or overpowered to the point of being like, you need to nerf this tomorrow. And usually what happens is there's a big enough tournament, somebody drop pods the hell out of it, and then they get nerfed into the dirt. And it's like, and that's the annoying thing about Games Workshop, is that problem with drop pods has persisted since, I mean, I've been playing since 3rd edition. So for 7 editions, you've had the same issue with the same unit and like haven't figured out how to fix it. It's like I think you guys might have a problem.
More fucking, like, now we're getting Kroot models, and we got a Kroot, which give Tau fucking melee.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely a good thing.
But then you get the Space Dwarves are back, and they've been back for how long? Almost 2 years now?
They might have been back longer, but yeah.
3 years, yeah, and we still don't have a fucking train.
Yeah, we have a shit tier non-train.
Yeah, where the fuck is our dwarf space train, land train?
That's what everybody wants. Well, like, at least with the Kroot, like, you can now down power the Tau shooting. Like the Tau got, like, I saw that a lot. Like, oh, they're getting the Kroot, the Tau are gonna be unbeatable. I'm like, no. The Kroot was a nerf to the Tau. It's like this just hurt their play style. I'm like,
you don't have to bring them.
Yeah, but because they're a tool in the toolbox, you can now down power their shooting. Because it's like, well then, because the answer is, oh, well, our shooting isn't as good. Well, bring Kroot and fill your problem. Whereas before, if they nerfed their shooting, it was like, well, I guess you're fucked, idiot. like they couldn't do anything. Like, even if they nerf like an Imperial or even like a Chaos army into the dirt, like, it's like, oh, my army sucks. It's like, take allies. It's like, there's something that you can do with the bigger overall forces, but like, if you're Tau or Orcs or Tyranids, like, if they nerf you into the ground, there's nothing that you can do. Whereas if you're if you're Chaos Marines, it's like, well, you can probably bring in a detachment of Thousand Suns or Death Guard or World Eaters and like kind of make your list work. Like there's something that you can do. It's why the Imperium has always been in the tournament scene, is because worst case scenario, you just soup them. And there's no way, with the amount of possibilities in the Imperial's tactical playbook, that you can't make something work. It's just not. It's not reasonable.
I
Are you
mean,
talking?
they just need to do what I've said for years now, and they need to nerf warp flavors because they're broken and hurtful, and nobody deserves to go through that.
I mean, you just found out the hard way that, yeah, in melee combat you're probably a lot better, but you need to get there first.
Yeah, yeah, I'm way better in melee combat. I'm losing 3/4 of my force by the time I fucking get there.
Yeah, that 6 inches right before melee combat is the problem for you.
Yeah, a fucking no man's land of death.
Those, those. By the way, someone did figure that out in a tournament, and it got nerfed into the dirt.
Oh yeah.
I knew that
Yeah,
was
because you
good.
could just walk that unit. Because you got sorcerers that are neglecting wounds, so they're just slow walking, and then a unit will get 6 inches away from them and become space dust.
Oh no, like what I because you could bring units back. So like even if you did
Yeah.
chip away at them, I was just bringing them back.
I killed two. I'm like, thank fucking God, and then they're back, and I'm like, what did I do to deserve this?
It's true. Give me one
like-
second. I gotta make a bottle. I'll be right back.
Because I brought too many Okaminos.
It's just because I'm like, I think this will work, and everything I was reading at the time was like, warp flamers suck, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure warp flamers rule ass.
The only downside is their range. That is literally the only fucking downside.
And that's what the rhino is for.
So if you can bring a rhino, or you can teleport them, or you can bring a sorcerer that can move them around, or bring them back to life,
No,
yeah, it's totally fucking worth it.
Nah, I need to use that teleport on my brick of 100 Zangor.
Oh jeez.
Good luck getting enough wounds through these assholes. I'll be right back.
Yep. Alright, chat. While we're waiting for Jack to get back, I'm just doing these side thrusters over here. And a gold. Just to bring a little bit more color to the model. They're by themselves, so it's not going to be like good. It shouldn't be like gaudy. Thing about this gold is you do have to layer it a good bit. Not a tremendous amount, depending on what you're trying to do. But like when you got there's a bunch of creases and crevices in here, so because of that, instead of just doing a single bit, it's going to take a little bit more. And then obviously we're going to turn it to its side here. So we can get the bottom half where we want it. Now again, chat, like basically if you wonder if something looks good or not, or if that's good enough, set it down, stand about like half a foot to a foot away from it. That's basically how people are going to see it. Unless somebody actually picks it up and goes over every little detail. If it looks good there, it's fine. You're fine. Don't overthink it. I mean, obviously, if you're painting for a store, like for a display model for a store or for a commission, you're going to want to put way more detail, all the detail and effort you can in, or. But if you're just paying this to use on a tabletop or just to have with your army, you don't have to go. You're not paying the fucking Mona Lisa here, okay? Keep it simple. Obviously, the skulls we're doing white. The skin on the Triceratops we're doing green. His base armor, for the most part, is going to be flat gray, standard Mechanicus gray. Skulls will do white, and just touches of gold here and there, just to bring some different color to it. And that's basically going to be it. So, hopefully, I'm happy with it when done. Obviously, there's a million people out here who could paint this way better than I can, but as long as you're happy with it, that's all that matters, chat. So, I do like these models that you can get on Etsy. Obviously, they're not licensed by Warhammer, even though it's clearly Space Marine. And like I said, I have a T-Rex here. I gotta paint next, and a Brontosaurus model. But there's just so much fucking detail on this thing that it's almost unnecessary. Like, you're gonna have stuff that's gray on gray on gray just because it's like, well, what am I supposed to paint that? Like, what does that do? So I'm just trying to get most of the base stuff done, and then we'll go back over and see what do we want to add detail to? What do we want? Like, what needs detail? Like, what should be a different color? Should all that be the same gray there in that area, or should it be something else? That was a little much there, but we should be able to spread that out just fine. I don't even know if I'm getting this in the camera or not, but I'm trying. I am trying, Jet. That's the other thing too, is you gotta move this model around. Not because I'm just trying to get stuff in the camera for you guys, but at the same time get all the spots I want painted. So my last model I spent a lot of time on it. I painted it for a friend of mine, Apex. And that model is on Instagram. That is a Space Marine with a shield and power sword. Because he played the Bulwark in Space Marine 2 when we played. And he helped me out a lot in that game, like getting levels and stuff. So I wanted to paint him a model that I had from my Indominus box. And I put a lot of time and effort in that, but I think it came out fantastic. I think it's one of my best painted models, honestly. And that's on Instagram. Instagram is Forge of the Fang. One of the only social media handle that isn't Roguebuster88, because that existed. My Instagram existed long before it was streaming. So,
all right, I'm back.
Why. So that is Forge of the Fang, and yeah, I think that last model I painted for Apex, I think was my best model to date. So, but the goal came out good.
Oh yeah.
Welcome back.
I'm back. My daughter she was super congested last night, which was awful. Yeah. But it is funny though, because like you get to see that there's a lot of shit tier parents out there, because I'm like looking for stuff that'll like work, and I'm like, okay, well, like, what can I do? And like I found this like, this like vapor rub that like you can actually use on a kid.
Yeah.
And helped. There's a parent, like, there's just a war in the comments section in the reviews of people being like, it smells like chemicals, I don't want to use it. And it's like, okay, so your kid's just suffering, you're a real piece of shit. It's like if your values are so precious to you that you're just gonna let your kids suffer, you're a real shifty piece of work, aren't you? It's like, you might be an asshole and they're gonna put you in a home. They're gonna be like, well, you smell like old people, get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah. Oh, there's chemicals on that. There's chemicals of fucking everything.
It's just hilarious, especially if you like look at like what it's actually made of. It's like there's no it's for babies. There's no fucking chemicals in it. This isn't the 40s. Like,
It's not like it's full of lead.
yeah.
It's that gleaming effect.
No, like a 40K model. Yeah. There are 40K models that you can't travel to certain European countries with. You need a license for that shit.
I would like one of those old metal Bjorn models, though, just to have.
Oh, yeah. It's...
For home defense.
Yeah, just in case you ever needed a rock to throw at someone.
Florida man kills home intruder with 40K dreadnought model.
No one would be even vaguely, so it's like, yeah, that seems completely possible.
Only the generation after us that never saw or knew what those were are like, how do you throw a piece of a plastic dreadnought model at somebody? It's just like, yeah, it's just a piece of pure solder, nickel, whatever the hell they were made out of.
I mean, lead. Now, I mean, once that Emperor's Children Codex comes out, I think that will be the end of metal models in 40K.
Well, don't the Eldar still have old metal models you have to buy to run the unit?
No, they just got a range refresh.
Okay.
I think all the Aspect Warriors, I don't think that they have any. Once that range refresh actually comes out, like, I think that they won't have any anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that just leaves the Noise Marine upgrade kit.
I can't wait to see the new Noise Marines.
Yeah, I think that will be the end. Because, I mean, anything that still might be around is not legal to play anymore. Like, it would be specifically in Legends, but I mean, even then, I don't think there's anything.
Okay, so since we're here and we're doing this, can you explain to me what Legends are now in 40K, like on the tabletop version? So Bjorn's a legend. I can't run him in a game.
Well, I don't know that. I need to look at the Space Wolves Codex. I doubt that Bjorn's a legend, but it's possible.
So, like, what about like? So
well, like
the old venerable dreadnoughts, like the old Maz pattern square, like my favorite dreadnoughts. You can't use those anymore.
Well, see, here's the thing: is that when it comes to the regular Marines, I'm pretty sure that they have been sidelined and they're in Legends now. But when it comes to, like, the specific armies, like, they've always had slightly different rules. And because because the Space Wolves haven't gotten, like, they're still an index army in 10th edition. Like, they haven't gotten their codex. They still have a lot of options. Yeah, the Space Wolves Venerables are still all legal.
But so in a different army, you can only run Redemptors?
Let me look at what the regular Marines are looking like right now. Data sheets. I don't know if they're out or they're planning on them being out, but I mean, the Dreads still look like they're in to me. I think it might just be the Venerable Dreadnought. Yeah. The Venerable Dreadnought as an option is gone.
Okay.
But people panicked about it because...
Yeah, how are you going to get rid of the box? How are you going to get rid of the Walking Death box?
Well, it's because it's a shift of things to come. Like it's well, I mean, one, the Space Marines Codex needs a fucking hacksaw taken to it. They've got so much shit at this point that it's
get rid of one of the 20 lieutenants you can bring. Like,
oh no, it's just one lieutenant. You could just put a bunch of shit on him.
This man's got more options than Iron Man as far as weapons choices.
No, I mean the problem is that I mean like you might be losing money on paper if you keep up the work rate of the Space Marine shit. But
because they come out with models that are one, dumb, and two, absolutely useless. Like the Space Marine on this like standalone like Punisher turret.
Oh yeah.
Never seen anybody use it. Looks cool. Never seen anybody use it. Or like the Whirlwind, like I guess we'll replace the Whirlwind. It's a standalone base. It can't move, but it only has a limited number of shots. So then after you shoot those, assuming some of them missed because that's how dice work, and then now you wasted points on an army on an immovable unit that can no longer shoot things.
Oh no, that bunker was a terror.
Oh, I heard it was. Maybe they nerfed it or something. I heard it was.
Yeah, well, it's
not bring that bunker.
It's the same problem as
cost way too much.
It's the same problem as the drop pod. It's like it's dog shit until it's way too good. there's no in between. It's almost like a unit that's immovable and only does one thing is going to be problematic to balance. If only there was some other unit that had been around for over 3 decades that had a similar issue. If only there was some kind of history to draw from Games Workshop. I cannot imagine your plight.
I've seen a lot of TikToks. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos of people like, hey, I got this game this weekend. This is my army. I'm playing against this. This is my list. And it's obviously mostly Space Marines because I'm biased. That's fine.
Well, it's mostly Space Marines because it's 40k. Most people play Space Marines.
And, like, if somebody's like, I'm bringing this Orc, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about your Tau Army. I don't care about your Eldar. I don't give a fuck. No, fuck off. I really don't give a shit about your Thousand Sons Army, and I really don't give a shit about your Necrons Army for personal reasons. That being said, I watched this guy bring 3 different, White Scars, a Blood Angels, a Space Wolf Army, to like 4 different games. You know what was never in one of those lists? The fucking go-kart.
It's because it's bad.
Like, I want the go-kart. I want 2 of them. I want one just so I can paint the cart black and put a number 3 on the side of it. And I want one to paint regularly for an army just to have. Like, it'll never be used. It'll be terrible. But I just want one just for the sake of having one. But, like, why did you spend time, energy, and money on this fucking model that nobody plays?
Paint it black, put a 3 on it, and then paint the driver red and blue and the gunner green and blue. That way it can look like the craziest Mario Kart Double Dash kart that's ever existed.
And I'm just going to have a rule that on turn 4, it dies every time, no matter what.
It's like
Did you paint it black with number 3 on the side? Yeah. Okay, well, according to the rules, you have twice as much shooting, mobility, and everything else. It's like, great. But come turn 4, that thing bursts into flames for no reason.
I mean, that is the thing, is that there aren't a lot of silly rules anymore, which are just there to be stupid. Like, there was a rule for the Skaven army for a really long time that on a certain model, if you rolled 2d6, if you rolled a 13, you won the game.
You can't roll a 13, though.
Not unless you're very cunning.
What?
It's in the rule book. It's so dumb, but it was in like multiple Skaven rule books, and it's hilarious. But But yeah, they've got a lot of rules about like rolling for a 13. So they just were like, hey, yeah, you win. 2d6s, roll a 13, you win. It's like, wait a second.
That's what somebody's just like, how come Skaven aren't in 40k? I'm like, they are. This is called the Imperial Guard.
They are. They're called humans. Well,
doesn't the Imperial Guard work just like the Skaven?
yes. That would be the main issue in bringing the Skaven into 40k, is that
because you have 2 Skaven armies.
well, like what you would have to do is you would have to lean really hard into their. So like Skaven always have, for a lot of their units, they have a you can roll to like increase the power.
Okay.
But if you fuck the roll up, it might just explode. So they'd have to really incorporate that, but then it's like, okay, but you'd have to balance that with, they would have to be worse enough that you couldn't just play them like the Imperial Guard, and if things got desperate, you start taking the risk, because then it just makes the Imperial Guard completely worthless. Because why would you not play the army that you can just start rolling the dice and possibly win instead of lose?
Yeah.
But it's also weird because now the Great Horned Rat is an official Chaos God. And it's like, okay, well, the Warp's extremely weird relationship has always kind of been Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k have been connected through the Warp. Yeah. So like, Slaanesh exists in fantasy, and the reason that they exist is because of the Eldar's debauchery, even though the Eldar don't exist in that universe. It's like, okay, well, so, now you've elevated, like, you could at least before be like, okay, well, like, the Warp is so big that you can have, quote-unquote, a major player like the Great Horned Rat, and he just doesn't matter in 40k. But if he's if he's officially a Chaos God, then that has implications.
Wait a minute. So in fantasy, who do the Lizard Men pray to?
Who do they worship? They worship the Old Ones.
Oh, okay.
So the Old Ones may or may not be the same Old Ones from 40k. But they're probably the same. But it's hard to know exactly. But if you treat them like they're the same, then you're not far off.
Well, because isn't there a Grey Knight in fantasy, supposedly?
So he showed up in one of the End Times books, which the End Time books are bad, and everyone would rather just choose to believe that they don't exist. But
is this why I can't get a good story about the Burning Prospero, because those were all in the old Armand books that everybody tells me to not listen to because they were bad.
I mean, they're just different. They're just very different. But the older Armand books aren't terrible. It's just that they've been retconned at this point to the point of okay, did this even happen?
I'll tell you this, though. I don't care. Armand showing up in The End of the Death 2 is easily one of my favorite parts of that fucking book.
Yeah. I mean, it's moments that are interesting. But, so that's Kaldor Drago. He's the
chapter master of the fucking...
Yeah. He's the chapter master of the Grey Knights. And
he's stuck in the Warp.
Yeah, so they were in...
Did he beat Mortarion, I heard? 1-on-1?
I mean, he beat Mortarion in the Chaos Gate video game.
Oh. Okay.
Well, and he's probably beaten the shit out of a lot of people. He's been in the warp for a while.
Why can't he leave?
He just got cursed and he can't.
Oh, okay.
Magic is the long and short of it.
Space magic. That's fine. Hey, I am perfectly fine with that rule for 40k.
Yeah, it's like
why? Space magic. Okay, don't think any more about it. Don't put any more into it.
Yeah,
space magic.
It's
That's all you need to know.
Essentially, like the more to it is that there was a very long and complex plan that resulted in it actually working. That's why it doesn't happen all the time. But yeah, it's space magic. But essentially, I think they attack Nurgle's garden. I can't remember. Nurgle's garden gets set on fire a lot. But the heroes meet an extremely large silver knight who uses blue flames. Now, it's important because in fantasy, the magic system is pretty clear in how it works, and blue fire just isn't a thing.
It just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
okay.
So the options for who this dude could have been are some type of Tzeentch warp entity or Khaldor Drago, and it's heavily implied that it's Khaldor.
Drago?
Yeah.
Does he have a bolter?
No, but I mean, he doesn't have one to begin with.
Oh, okay.
He's just got a sword and shield. I mean, he'd be long since out of ammo if he did have one. So, because he's not exactly getting resupplied. So, yeah, like that happens, but it's very incidental. It kind of goes to show how to the Chaos Gods, it shows how low stakes all this shit is, and why they're just constantly fucking around. It's because it's the Emperor is our great enemy in the 40k universe. It's yeah, but there's a whole multiverse where he doesn't fucking matter. And it's yeah, he matters in 40k. And it's does he matter in does he matter to the Chaos Gods? No. No. He is,
especially now.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, even before that, it's he's nothing. He's a slight distraction to them.
I mean, he was important enough for them to cause the Horus Heresy to try to get him on the Golden Throne, which I think is what they all wanted in the end anyway.
Yeah, but it's okay, let's say they don't do that. Let's say he totally wins and dominates that universe.
Okay.
They don't fucking care. Oh, you have a universe that we can't get into. That's annoying, but we've got all of the other universes. Alright. Even if you completely shut us out of the 40k universe, it's okay.
I'm just waiting to see when Trazen tries to steal the Emperor. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. But
that's got to be on his bucket list, right?
I mean, he's an immortal klepto. He's a lot of fun. But yeah, the Great Horned Rat being an ascended Chaos God, it's okay, either the other Chaos Gods are just kind of making fun of him, which that's not really how that works, or there's gonna be some weird shit happening.
Yeah. Because it was always my understanding that the 4 Chaos Gods and 40k are the same 4 Chaos Gods in fantasy.
Yeah, they are the same.
So
it's
if there's a Great Horned Rat in the warp, there's a Great Horned Rat in the warp in 40k.
Yeah, and him being a principal Chaos God means that he's a principal Chaos God.
Yeah.
It's it creates a lot of strangeness for the lore to a certain extent. But we'll see what they end up doing, or if they just separate things even more. Or they could just be because the warp does weird things to the time stream, is that well, this happened at an earlier phase or something like that.
News. The Arcs of Omen series ended. which launched into 10th edition or whatever.
Yeah.
And we got another Primarch on Primarch fight. And that was the Lion versus Ankrog. And that fight went very different from the last Primarch fight we had of Mortarion versus Gilliman, which was more or less a battle of morals and family feuding. And more or less the Lion's like, you still mad, bro? Blah, fuck off, I'm gonna kill you anyway.
No, I mean, I don't like the Primarchs to begin with, so I'm I'm always the wrong person.
I like this Lion. I thought Lion Son of the Forest, I thought that was a really good book. I've listened to it a few times.
Well, my problem is that even if they can get to a point of being interesting, Games Workshop is never going to let them do anything interesting.
So, speaking of Primarchs that you hate, or you hate Primarchs in general.
I kind of hate them all equally, so...
Except for Magnus, I guess? I don't know.
No, I mean, Magnus is a hilarious fuck-up in many, many ways, but, I mean, it's just that during the entire... I hate their presentation, I guess. It's like, they're presented as, like, these genius pinnacles of humanity, but, like, they all operate like they exclusively drink lead paint.
Like, they're the most flawed humans.
They're
like,
they're dumb. They're all so fucking dumb.
They
like,
don't have common sense.
No, they're stupid. Tactically they're dumb as hell. Like, they have pieces of wood where their brains should be. They're all dumb as fuck. Like, it's unbelievable. Well, except when the story requires them to, like, operate above room temperature IQ.
I don't think Sanguinius was dumb.
They all, like, I mean, the Emperor is the king moron of dipshit mountain. Like, like, everything about it, they're getting way into the weeds on this, but yeah, I hate them all. I think they're all dumber than rocks.
I'm just trying to ask about Russ coming back. Can we settle the fuck down?
Yeah, no, Russ will probably be the next Primarch to come back.
But he's not supposed to come back till the wolf time.
I mean, who fuck knows what that means? We can make that literally mean anything.
I think it'd be funny. My theory is, since you're so confident that he's coming back, and you just enjoy to hurt me with things in general, so when he's not the next one to come back, I won't be surprised.
Well, so it's either him or a massive rework to the Sanguinor. Like,
okay.
Like, I don't think Sanguinius will ever come back officially, but there might be something with the Sanguinor where we get something out of that, especially with how hard Abaddon's been hitting lately. A strike back and recovery of Sanguinius's soul would be it would be a big enough boon for it to matter, but not big enough to, like, really change the overarching story. So I can see why they would do it. Is, like, it's a hurt to Abaddon, which they haven't really been able to do lately. It's like Abaddon's kind of been whipping ass lately, and that's weird. Like, it's traditionally not been something he's been good at.
No, he's got a whole war planet now.
He's got a couple of them, but we can we'll start next week on Russ is the next Primarch coming back.
All right. Well, chat, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I had a really fun time.
Yeah, so did I.
Jack.
Yeah, we'll definitely get this.
I got some of the model painted, which needs to happen. And we got a lot of 40K stuff out, so hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And we'll see y'all next Sunday.
Yeah. All right, homie. Well, I will talk to you later.